really the real William Shakespeare, but what does Edward Olivier have to say? Moving on for second candidate.
I was an Elizabethan courtier, playwright, poet, and sponsor of at least 2 acting companies, the Oxford Men and Oxford Boys. Firstly, one of the theories that I was actually writing under a pen name, namely that of William Shakespeare. I also wrote plays of quality enough to be cited by Francis Neal, author of Paladin Tamina, and he said that I was the best of comedy among us. Interestingly, William Shakespeare also wrote many great comedies, with one of the most loved being A Midsummer Night's Dream. If I was indeed such a magnificent and noteworthy author, why would none of my works have survived? The only answer, short of a mass book burning, is that they did survive, but under another name, William Shakespeare. The Shakespeare that we know about set quite a lot of plays in Italy and filled them with many local details. One can only obtain these local details with constant personal contact with the country and culture. For example, William Shakespeare knew that a dish of baked duck was a time-honored northern Italian dish. In Merchant of Venice, he said that Gobbo said, "I have here a dish of duck that I will present to my worship." He also knew that about the special nighttime police force in Venice, the Signori del Norte, that is actually peculiar to Venice and is not really well known outside of Venice. This would have been almost impossible for a commoner of like Shakespeare or Shepherd for Heaven, because Edward Olivier actually rented a house in St. Mark's Square in Venice, allowing him a long period of stay there. The lack of education and knowledge in various fields that Shakespeare used also made William Shakespeare of Shepherd for Heaven a less than satisfactory candidate. In his sonnets, Shakespeare used a lot of legal terms, including allege, auditor, defect, foresee, impeach, release. These would most likely not have been known to the Shakespeare of Stratford for Avon, who only had a pitiful education in a Latin grammar school, not a place where one learns much about law. On the other hand, I received legal training at grade 8, and thus were the knowledge required. There are also many connections that some have found between my life and plays that Shakespeare wrote. In 1577, the Company of Captains was formed to support Martin Frobisher's hunt on the Northwest Passage. With thoughts of an impending Canadian gold rush filling my head, and trusting the financial advice of a Michael Locke, who was a London businessman with Mediterranean connections, I finally went and bond for £3,000, just as Antonio in the Merchant of Venice went in bond for 3,000 ducats against the successful return of his vessel with rich cargo. And in the end, both of us lost our money. One of the counter-arguments posed by the Stratfordians, as people who support William Shakespeare of Shepherd for Heaven posed, is that the date of death, my date of death, is actually in the middle of the publication of the play. I died on the 24th of June 1604 from plague. However, the publications of Shakespeare's play continued 4 years later. In 1608, it was 5 years silence, beginning in approximately 1604. Do you think that this is a coincidence? I do not think so. Mark Anderson, and Shakespeare in another name, notes that during the years of 1693 to 1604, whenever an imperial or private text was published, it was then typically followed by a genuine text that was newly augmented and corrected. However, after 1604, the new correcting and augmenting stopped. Once again, the Shakespeare enterprise seems to have shut down, which it did after I died. Another interesting fact is that King James I's English coronation took place on the 25th of July 1604, with elaborate allegories provided by dramatic poets such as Thomas Dekker and Ben Jonson. So, why was Shakespeare missing? Shakespeare of Stratford-upon-Avon was still very alive and kicking. He only died in 1617, 13 years later. However, I died on June 24th in 1604, just before the coronation. So, could this be the explanation? After all, if Shakespeare had died, nothing would have been written. Some examples also imply that the writer of the plays and poems attributed to William Shakespeare died prior to 1609, when Shakespeare's sonnet first appeared in the enigmatic words, "Our ever-living poet" on the title page. Would one expect the word "ever-living" to refer to a living person? The phrase mostly, if always, refers to someone who is not alive, but does not refer to someone who is alive, but instead to the eternal soul of the deceased. Out of the four main contenders, only Christopher Marlowe died before 1609, and he is contended to be alive at that time by his supporters of the Marlowean theory, thus leaving only me as the candidate that was confirmed dead before 1609 without doubt. Therefore, I conclude that I was the one who wrote William Shakespeare.